On today's episode, we sit down with a young man that has accomplished more in the world of fishing at 22 years old than most anglers will in their entire lives. And that young man's name is Easton Fothergill. Easton's been on quite the wild ride the past few weeks, but today he sits down with us here at Tackle Talk to talk about how he's feeling a mere 2 weeks removed from winning the most prestigious award in bass fishing, and he gives us some insight into the actual gear that helped him do it. All that and more on this episode of Tackle Talk.
Hello, everybody. I'm Bill Dance, and you're listening to Tackle Talk.
This is the Tackle Talk Podcast, brought to you by American Legacy Fishing and Outdoors. World-class fishing gear, unmatched personal service. Now, here's your host, Andrew Hayes.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Tackle Talk Podcast. As always, we are brought to you by American Legacy Fishing and Outdoors. And AmericanLegacyFishing.com is my favorite place to check for brand new rods, reels, line, baits, whatever you could need for your fishing adventures. But not only new gear, they also have the internet's best selection of gently used fishing gear too. And not only can you go over there and buy used fishing gear at a great discounted rate, you can also trade in your fishing gear that you don't want for credit toward the gear that you actually do want with the nation's easiest trade-in program. So you go on the website, you tell them what gear you would like to trade in, you get a quote within 24 hours sent right to you, and then if you agree on that price, you ship your gear to them, and they give you an instant credit to be used on the website at any given time. It is so simple, it's so streamlined, it is easy, and you can turn that pile of rods or reels that have been sitting in your garage or your spare room or your shed or whatever into credit for the gear that you actually want to buy from ALF. It's awesome. But all of that from a great Midwestern tackle shop right there in southern Indiana. They're family owned. They care about you. They want to make sure they get the best fishing gear in your hands at the best price with the best service on the internet. So go check them out, www.americanlegacyfishing.com. And as always, you can use code TACKLETALK5. That's going to save you 5% on not only regularly priced items, but also sale items. Take an extra 5% off on us just for listening to the show. That's code TACKLETALK5 over at www.americanlegacyfishing.com. Okay, folks, today we sit down with an angler whose name you've heard quite a few times on this show the past 2 weeks, and for good reason. It's Easton Fothergill. And we talked about it last week and in our classic recap episode 2 weeks ago, but Easton won the 2025 Bassmaster Classic in dramatic fashion with an insanely cool buzzer beater, nail in the coffin fish catch. He shattered Kevin Van Dam's classic 3-day total weight record, and he's only about 2 years removed from actual life-changing emergency brain surgery. And now he's standing at the top of the bass fishing world. So in this episode, you're going to hear a pretty good representation of who Easton Fothergill is. He's a young man that tends to keep his head down. He isn't loud. He isn't flashy. He chooses his words carefully. He's humble, he's grateful, and I think he's a great role model for all anglers, young and old alike, and shows us how to win graciously, to tune out the noise, and to stay laser focused on his craft. So he is the epitome of speak softly and carry a big stick, and you're going to see that today. And I think that's really cool because in today's day and age of professional fishing, where it's almost equally as important to be outgoing and to make a brand for yourself and to put yourself out there and have your personality shine through on and off the water, it's almost equally as important to do that side of things as it is to just catch fish. Easton, on the other hand, is very much like a lets his results do the talking for him kind of guy, which I think is the much harder but also more impressive way to make a name for yourself in the fishing world. No nonsense, no fluff, just flat out catching more fish than the guy next to you. But today, we sit down with Easton to reflect a little bit and dig a little deeper after his big win, and also take a closer look at the exact gear that he was throwing at the Bassmaster Classic. So with that, let's hop right into our conversation with Easton Fothergill. All right, ladies and gentlemen, today we are joined by a man that I have to imagine is coming off of the greatest 2 weeks that anybody could ever imagine. Your bank account's obviously looking a little better. Your trophy shelf is looking even better than it did 2 weeks ago. Your 2025 Bassmaster Classic champion, Easton Fothergill. Easton, how's life, man?
Oh, it's hectic, man. I mean, it's been extremely busy ever since then, but yeah, I'm just so grateful for the week I had. And, I still can't even believe it, just how perfect everything went. It just seems so surreal to me, even now, 2 weeks later. So, I mean, crazy.
I mean, you've talked about it enough at this point. I'm sure it has to like start to set in. Your brain has to realize like, okay, it's real. This is not like I'm not waking up in 2 days and this was just all a giant fever dream. Like, I mean, you've had to replay it so many times in your head. Is it starting to set in a little bit more?
I mean, maybe a little bit, but still, like I look at myself on stage, like all the videos and stuff. I'm just like it's crazy. I mean, it's just crazy how, even when you're practicing for that event, at least for me, it just feels like so out of reach to win that event. Just, the stakes of it is just unbelievable. So, but every day of the event that I had a good day one, and I was like, okay, like I feel good. And then my day two, I was like, holy cow, like this is now I'm like all of a sudden trying not to like fold and stumble, you know what I mean? So I mean it's just so many wide ranges of emotions went through that week. It was just crazy to come out on top.
So I've had a chance to watch quite a few interviews, I think, that you've done over the past probably week and a half. You've done a great job. Again, I know this isn't like your comfort zone by any means. You're very much a like keep to yourself, keep your head down, go out and just hammer fish and not really like do a lot of this kind of stuff. So before we dive into this, if you guys haven't already, there's plenty of great interviews out there. There's a great one with Pang Rack over at BTL. You did a great job with Mercer. All of those are awesome. So they've done a really good job, I think, of hammering into just the overall feel and the classic itself and emotions and all the up and downs you've had in your life. Mercer did a great job with obviously just the roller coaster you've been on for a couple years. So go check that out if you haven't already. I'm going to at least do my best here to kind of try and give you some different questions and avoid a lot of the cliche stuff, at least to give you some new stuff maybe to talk about. I'll try my best. I know there's a billion questions and answers out there with you right now, but we're going to give it a go. So the first thing, I know we started talking about it really briefly before we hit record here, but how many hours of interviews do you think you have done in the past 2 weeks?
I don't even know. I mean, the week after the event, I was doing like probably 10 to 15 interviews a day. I mean, and it's hard to schedule them because, you don't really know, like, especially podcasts, you never know how long they're going to go. So I like, can't go like bang, 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 bang. So I got to like leave an hour. And there's been a lot of times where I'm like, hey, going to be a couple minutes late sort of thing. But it's been a lot of fun. I like talking about fishing and, just my story and stuff. So I've actually really enjoyed it.
Have you had to get more organized in the past 2 weeks than you ever have before? I mean, I remember when I was 22, dude, I could not have managed all of this. I could barely manage to just like get the, class on time or get to work on time or whatever, let alone to schedule 10, 15, 20 interviews, all my sponsor stuff, everything. Have you learned to like use a calendar?
Yeah, Google Calendar has been my best friend the last couple of weeks for sure. And I'm setting like 2 reminders, like 2 hours and 30 minutes. Like I've definitely very quickly gotten very good with that.
So you are, at least what I know anyway, a man of few words, but do you think you have said more words in the past like 10 days than you have in the past couple years combined?
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I mean, this, if the event has done, the way it's changed my life is it's made me talk and, tell my story more than I ever have, which, is probably a good thing because I do think I have a pretty unique and cool story, I guess. And yeah, it's definitely given me the platform to really tell it. And hopefully, I guess my main goal with my win is to inspire like the young anglers that, it is possible. So that's kind of what I'm trying to do with my platform that I now have.
Yeah, it's definitely cool to see almost every conversation I've watched of you, like the magnitude of it and how lucky you are and all of that. Like you can tell that you don't take that for granted. And I think that shines through basically every time I've ever seen you talk to somebody. I think you can tell when people appreciate things more and little things more. I mean, just being here, seeing, I heard one where you're just watching a sunset on the lake, like that kind of stuff means a whole lot more after obviously what you've went through the past couple of years. But I've got some big picture questions for you for the Classic itself before we dive into like the really nitty gritty gear talk, which is what I really want to get to. But my first question, so I got to hop in the boat with you right before you went in the arena on day 2 and 3, I think, and just grab a couple questions with you for the broadcast. And you hadn't weighed in on day 2 yet, but you knew you obviously had a mega bag. And the one thing that sticks out to me, I remember you saying, I'm on some sort of adrenaline rush right now. I don't even know what's going on. I tried to rig my rods in the boatyard and I couldn't do it because my hands were shaking so bad. Like I vividly remember that. And that is before you've taken the lead. You don't have a lead at that point. You're going into day 2 to weigh in, but it's starting to set in. You're like, oh my goodness, this could be a real thing here. Does that adrenaline and whatever you were on, the shakes and everything at that point, did that stay until you weighed in final day?
Yeah, it definitely did. I mean, you could probably tell I was a wreck going into those weigh-in 2 days. Like I was on some kind of adrenaline rush I've never felt before. But yeah, I mean, the night before the final day, I slept like an hour maybe. I mean, like I was so revved up and ready to get back out there. Like, and with that, I'm just like, there's so many scenarios going through my head on how to stay on top of the fish. Like, I'm just keep reminding myself like I'm gonna have to make an adjustment again. Like I gotta, what I mean? So it's just the adrenaline, and plus like I'm stressed out. Like I know I gotta, stay on top of it one more day. So I mean, there's just so many thoughts going through my head. So I mean, but yeah, I mean, you could probably tell how many like emotions and the adrenaline I was on before I went into the arena the last 2 days.
Yeah, as if the Classic isn't stressful enough already. Like just to go out there in general, I'm sure to be a part of the Classic is awesome. But then just the complete added pressure of 2 rough events to start the year. You have that whole thing, right? So it's like, I need to right the ship somehow. You're probably coming in a little bit of chip on your shoulder, which, sometimes helps some people depending on how competitive they are. But then you go into it, and day 1 is obviously, a free for all. You have a really good day 1, obviously, but day 2 is where everything turns into just, oh, this could be a really good event, and a turnaround and a bounce back for me to my life could change forever in 2 days and nothing could ever be the same again. Don't mess this up on day 3. The one thing that was really interesting, I don't think we got to see it on live. I haven't gone back and looked completely, but I heard a lot that I don't think the fish that you dumped that was like a 7, I don't think that made it to live. And I don't think I've really heard a ton about how that whole thing played out. I'm sure that is just the devil on your shoulder, that final day of, dude, you had a 7-pounder hooked and you could have been sitting real pretty right now, but you're not. I feel like we can ask this now that we know it turns out okay. But can you tell us the story about that fish specifically that you lost?
Yeah, it was the first thing that I asked my parents when I got in. I was like, did you guys see the one I lost? And they're like, no, you lost one. And, I was really surprised it didn't make live. But yeah, I mean, that was definitely it really deflated my sails, I guess. I had just caught my first keeper of the day. I didn't catch it till like 9:30 or closer to 10, like really tough morning. Finally got the wheels kind of back on. And then, like 5 minutes after my first keeper, I lost that one. And, that would have got me just so ahead of schedule. And I mean, yeah, just knowing the lead that I had and then having a fish of that caliber come off at the boat, it was just like, man, like, it was really, I'm usually really, really good about getting over lost fish like that. Like I've really trained myself to turn those into a positive. Like, you hooked a big one for a reason, you're doing something right. So, but that one, for whatever reason, for it being the Classic and I have this lead, like I would have been in such a good spot if I had that fish. It probably took like a half hour for me to get over that fish loss and finally get over it. Like, okay, like keep working, I'll probably get another bite like that. So, but yeah, I mean, definitely super deflating to have that happen. But yeah, I mean, ultimately we stayed in that area just a little bit longer after that, and we ended up pulling the plug and making another adjustment. But yeah, I mean, it was definitely quite the mental hurdle to get over for sure.
What happened or what went wrong, do you think, with that fish? Was it not hooked well? Did you swing it, the wrong direction? What was it hooked on? Like, what was all that?
It was on a jerkbait, and it was just one of those things like, it's treble hooks. Sometimes there's just nothing you can do when they come up and jump, and that was one of those scenarios. It was hooked on the side of the mouth. She didn't have it like completely engulfed or anything, so literally nothing I could do about it. She just came up and threw it. So I mean, there's just nothing you can do. I mean, it'd be a different thing if I like tried to do something stupid like boat flop it or something, but I mean, nothing I could do differently there.
When you did get those jerkbait bites, were they actually eating it, or were they coming up and just like kind of playing with it and nosing with it, and that led to like some bad hooks?
Most of them were just kind of, they would chase it really hot, and then I would just have them hooked kind of weird, except for that big one I caught on day 2, that 6 3/4. She had it way down deep, but that was the only one all week that had it good. Everything else was just kind of one hook on the side, and kind of weird. They were just kind of slapping at it for the most part, most of the week.
Well, obviously, it turns out to be an incredible day. There is a great silver lining to the story, obviously, because you didn't let that fish rattle you. You didn't let the demons and the voices kind of get in your head. You kept them at bay, and you stayed the course. You did exactly what you've been doing, which, again, is a good way to look at a lost fish, I think. I get really discouraged a lot of times, too, when you dump that fish. But like you said, you did something right to make it bite. So there's no reason to abandon what got you to that point in the first place. You just have to realize, okay, unfortunately, that happens sometimes. Minimize it, keep on going. But what I'm going to do next, because this is the video, the audio, the everything heard round the world, is at the end of that day, what I'm going to do, I know if I were you, I would have watched this video 10,000 times by now. I'd watch it every single, minute of every single day. There are 25,000 views on the one that I've got pulled up right now, 24,500 of them would be me if I was you. But what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to play the audio only. So I don't want you to watch the video. I just want you to listen to the audio. And then I have some really specific questions for you after this.
Got her. Come on, baby. Get out of there. Big and giant. Giant! Come on! Oh my, please. Come on. Please. Yes! Yes! Let's go. Yes! Let's go! Let's go! Oh my God. Oh my God. That is a giant. Did that really just happen? Look at that thing. What? What? Are you kidding me, bro? We just got really hard to beat, boys. Yes! There's the kicker. 8-pounder, boys. Dude. Yes!
That is the winning fish. Like, before that fish, you have Trey, you have Lee, you have Hunter, that with what you have in the box are right on your tail. They have to be close. That 8-pound fish, I'm a big sports guy. That is like the equivalent of, and it's in the Bassmaster Classic, that is the equivalent of a Game 7 dagger 3 at the buzzer of the NBA Finals. That is like bottom of the ninth, Game 7 walk-off of the World Series. That's Hail Mary in the Super Bowl as time expires. Like, it is on that big of a stage for our sport. And you rightfully, at that point, show some actual emotion, and you let out kind of a very uncharacteristic, yells and woos there. And it's really cool to see because you're such a buttoned up, kind of keep to yourself, sort of a quiet assassin type. So when we're listening to that, when you listen to that back, what is the biggest emotion we're hearing right there? Is it excitement or is it relief?
It's both. It's a mixture of both. But yeah, I mean, like you said, the emotion that I show there, that really shows how much that fish meant to me. Because like you said, I'm not one to do that. I don't show much for emotion at all. Keep myself. But for me to act like that shows you how much that fish meant to me and how excited I really got.
Has there ever been another point in your life where you've had that type of feeling or emotion on a boat? Because, I mean, like up to this point, everything's relative. So, like, you don't have the knowing what catching the winning fish at the Bassmaster Classic feels like. So, I mean, the college bracket, everything you've done in high school and college and everything. Have you ever felt something close to that before?
Not even close. Not even remotely close. Not even in, like, I caught a almost 9-pounder at Eufaula to win that open. And there was no hooping, there was no hollering. I mean, obviously, that fish still meant the world to me, but this one was a whole another level.
Then after that, the thing that I think is really interesting is, a lot of people ask you about that specific moment. Like there's the shot of, I think Chase got it, of you where you're like kneeled down on the boat and it's just like, obviously all the emotions are hitting you. And I'm sure that's where everything flashes before you and you just have that kind of recollection moment. What I'm interested in is the next couple hours, because you have a long time between that fish and weigh-in. And so there's a lot of time there to reflect and a lot of time there for emotions and different emotions to hit you. So you have, obviously to fish the rest of the day, you have the drive back to the actual ramp, you have a long drive to the arena, and then a long line to wait in. What was going through your brain over those next couple hours?
Yeah, so I mean, I had my hands on the deck for a while. I walk up to the front deck. I try to fish again. I ended up putting my hands on my knees, rod over my head. I'm just like, did that really happen kind of deal? And then there was another fish in that tree, almost the same size. So then I'm like, I got to catch this one. Like I can really slam the door. And, it didn't work out, but ended up pulling the trolling motor probably 5 or 10 minutes after because there was giant waves in the main lake. I just wanted to make sure I get back at that point. So, but yeah, I mean, ended up loading the boat, and Mercer had told none of us to look at Bass Track all the Super Six because he wanted the dispense at the weigh-in sort of thing, so I wasn't going to. But I knew when I loaded the boat up, it would have taken the biggest bag of the tournament to beat me at that point, which is all you can ask for. Like, I knew there was a shot that I got beat, but I know in the back of my mind that's the kind of stuff that happens when you win tournaments. Like it's those last minute kind of heroics. Whoever that happens to is usually one that wins a tournament. So I kind of knew that in the back of my mind. But then, the way it was set up, like all the service trailers and stuff right at the ramp. So I'm there like hooking everything up, getting ready for the drive, and I can't remember who walked up to me first, but he was like, "Congrats, man. Like, how's it feel?" I'm like, what? And another person and another person. And I was just like, I wasn't going to look at Bass Track, but I knew it must be good. So, and then, we go I make the drive, and I'm just thinking about how meant to be the whole week felt sort of thing. And then, yeah, I mean, the congratulations just kept happening in the boatyard then. So I had a good feeling that, I probably did it, but I mean, yeah, it was just lots of reflection on, all the memories of the past 2 years, and then just how, no decision I made throughout the week of the Classic was the wrong decision. I just, every move I made, I was able to land on them. So, I mean, it's just, I'm a firm believer that the winner, there's a plan set out for whoever's going to win the tournament. It's like predetermined, and whoever that person is, they can't help it. Like they're going to win. So that's kind of, I was just reflecting on that, that it just happened to be me this week, and just super grateful, I guess.
You have like 4 hours. You didn't look at Bass Track once.
I didn't know.
I wouldn't be able to do that, dude. No way. I would be like, I'll take a little peek, maybe just a little tad, just so that my adrenaline. No, good for you, man. That's got to make, and it's probably hard to do, but it's got to make that moment that much more special, right? Because even though people are coming up and congratulating you, we've seen that before, in classics where people have congratulated the wrong person because they think that someone won. I was
thinking that too, like I was just thinking like, maybe the other people, because, Corey sandbags all the time. We all know that. So yeah. I'm just like, well, maybe. I mean, there was definitely that thought in the back of my mind too. Like I'm trying not to get too excited because everyone's congratulating me. So it was a lot of emotions for sure, and a lot of different thoughts. But yeah, I definitely knew that if anyone beat me, they definitely earned it. And that's all you can ask for.
You know what's cool to think about? Think of the winners of the Classics the past 10, 20 years. Like, yes, you'll have some on-the-water footage, you'll have some photography, stuff like that. But I mean, you, on this win, you have hours and hours and hours of live coverage from Bass. You have an awesome photo gallery. Again, shout out to Chase and everybody. They did an awesome job on day 3, just making sure that this will be immortalized forever for you and for everybody else. I also heard, I could be wrong here, Strike King was recording you. So I heard in one of the press conferences or interviews or something you did you say they got every fish catch in slow-mo?
Yes. Dude, it's going to be the most insane video ever. And it's the guys told me that it's supposed to be done around Wednesday this coming week. So it's going to be unreal.
Have you got to see any of the footage yet?
They sent me the promo of the video, which I think they're posting this weekend. Okay. It's going to be like, the promo it gave me chills because, and they interview me before every event, like just my thoughts and just, what it would mean to win sort of thing, blah, blah, blah. And the last line that I said was, I just want to be able to walk to my parents and say I did it. And then when they were on stage, they got audio through my mic of my dad and my girlfriend and my sister saying, you did it. And it's just, that's not planned at all. But when they sent me that gave me the biggest chills down my spine. Like, it's going to be just all the emotion they captured in that video and stuff is going to be insane with every single fish catch. I mean, I can't wait to see it.
You might have the most well-documented Classic win of all time in terms of photos, video, audio, like everything. You're going to be able to relive from multiple angles, multiple microphones, everything. You'll be able to relive this for the rest of your life. Like, that's got to be super cool just to know that it was all completely captured.
Yeah. I mean, just like you said, to be able 10 years from now, be able to feel the emotions again. Like, it's It's unreal how everything worked out that way. And I mean, they even came into our house, like when we were all, we just woke up. The camera guys came into the house and just interviewed my family as we're getting ready every morning, and just got all of our thoughts. And then, for it all to play out that way, I can't wait for it to come out. I'm so excited.
That's awesome. So you also obviously win, couple $100,000. That's a great addition to the bank account too. I heard you say that one of your first purchases, I don't know if it was from the Classic, but just in general, I know you were looking forward to your first house at some point. So, not renting, not having roommates, like being able to kind of pick where you want to go and set some roots and really start that. I know last I heard that you hadn't picked where you wanted to end up yet, where you wanted to buy and kind of settle down and start that sort of thing, or at least make home base for the next couple years. Is there a short list? Like, what's in the running for like a place that you would like to live or would like to kind of make the next stop for Easton?
It's going to be somewhere around here. It's going to be, most likely Tennessee somewhere is where I'll probably end up staying. And, with that, I hope to still do what I'm doing. I want to spend some months in Minnesota in the summers. It's just the best place in the world. Minnesota summers, you can't beat it. And then obviously I want to be down here for most of the, Elite Series season, just be centrally located. Definitely helps with travel costs and that sort of thing. So yeah, definitely set up home base somewhere down here, but I still would like to get up north in the summer, at least for a month or so every year.
Being a Minnesota guy and a northern guy too, like, I mean, at least in Tennessee, you've still got some smallmouth around too. Like, I have to imagine, I can't picture you being in, I don't know, Texas or Florida or somewhere where you're just like almost completely void of smallmouth. Like, you have to have a little bit of that in your backyard somewhere.
Right, exactly. Definitely miss them when I'm around here for sure.
So again, loaded question here. This will be my last question before we really kind of get into more of the gear side of things. But it's been almost 2 full weeks at this point, and I know that the effects of everything that have happened obviously take a lot longer than that to set in, because there will be ripples and repercussions of this for years and years in your career too. So obviously we are nowhere near seeing the long-term impacts of that. But I'm going to ask it anyway. Is winning the Bassmaster Classic everything that you imagined it would be for your whole life?
I think so. And like you said, I really haven't been able to see the full effects yet, but just, I guess, how do I word it? Just the amount of people that have wanted to talk to me, it's been super eye-opening to me, just how much it really means to the sport. I don't know, you're almost the face of Bassmaster for the following year after you win. Like, I mean, it's pretty cool to have that title, I guess. And yeah, I definitely think it will be life-changing. I haven't really got to see it fully yet, but moving, forward in my career to have that title next to your name, it definitely, I don't know, it puts you into legend status almost like right away. I mean, I've competed, I guess 4 events now. If you include the Classic, I competed in last year, like 4 events at the top level of the sport, and I'm all of a sudden in like legend status. Like, that's pretty cool to think about. So, I mean, I definitely do think it'll definitely set me up, for my career moving forward. I just haven't been able to fully see it yet, but short term definitely changed my life. And it's just, I don't want to say I'm like more appreciated, but I don't know how to word it exactly, but I guess you get what I'm saying. Like, I've definitely lifted my career to another level than it was beforehand.
Yeah. And again, I think we were all betting on the fact that when you have that first 2 events and the first 2 struggles, you're just like, I don't know, it's like watching anybody else where you're like, this will turn around. The law of averages will come back around. Easton Fothergill is an absolute hammer. So what better way to turn it around than obviously the 3rd event of the year being the Classic. So kudos to you. Now I want to get to what we're obviously really here for at Tackle Talk. It is the tackle side of things and the technique side of things, and really diving into people that are listening to this and maybe being able to take something away and become a better angler out of it. So if it's cool with you, I kind of want to go through both techniques and the gear itself. So I guess for starters, you've done a lot of interviews, but there are a lot of people I think that listen to our show that probably aren't going to be super familiar with Ray Roberts. They're not super familiar with how that event sets up and how that lake sets up, and a lot of the stuff I think that gets talked about by people that really, really know the lake and really know that side of things kind of goes over some people's heads sometimes. So I want to start more kind of at a basic, broader level. At a really basic level, can you explain to folks kind of the pattern that you found over that probably week or so at Ray Roberts?
Yeah, the pattern that I found, I was fishing trees, but it was very specific to trees I wanted to fish. Obviously, that east arm where I focus most of my time on Ray Roberts is just a forest. I mean, it's trees for miles, but out of that whole forest, like I said, super small percentage of trees that I wanted. It was the trees that were positioned on your your basic pre-spawn, structure. It seemed like the best was halfway back in these spawning pockets. The last deep water I could find, any channel swing, secondary point, anything that would have a hard bottom that had trees on it was the deal for me. And yeah, I mean, it got to the point where I could look at a Lake Master map and just know, like, okay, if there's bass in this creek, they're going to be here, 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 just anywhere that would have a hard bottom. And there was fish in like the drains and stuff on the soft bottom, like in the middle of these creeks, but it was not nearly as efficient for me to go through all those trees and find a couple fish. It was, I could look at a map, like I said, and okay, there's a row of trees here. If there's fish around this area, there'll be some on these trees, on this certain section of trees. So basically found out that was the most efficient way to do it. So I would just go in the creeks and there'd be, I don't know, 4 or 5, 6 spots in every creek that would set up right, and I would just rotate those 6 zones. By the time I'd get back to it, there'd be a couple more set up on the places, and I would just make a big circle basically. And the biggest key to it was my best creeks, all of them had milfoil in it, and there was guys like Lee was fishing milfoil, Corey Johnston, Milliken, I think a little bit too. They were focusing more on the grass, but I was kind of pinpointing them just out from the grass. That was kind of the deal that I landed on. But yeah, that was definitely a main key. The creeks that had milfoil were definitely the ones that were most populated. And yeah, that was a big component to my deal too. Had 3 major areas that I'd liked after practice. And then that afternoon on day 2, I was able to locate 2 more areas. So, but yeah, I mean, that was the main gist of my pattern, I guess. And yeah, it seemed like the mornings were cooler for the most part, so they'd be just a little bit deeper in the mornings, and as the day warmed up, they'd kind of shift a little bit further back into the creeks as the day went on. So I guess my thoughts going into the event was, as long as I could find them decently early in the morning and follow them throughout the day, that's when I'd be pretty dangerous. So that was my goal every day of the event, was just to find them early, because they'd shift a little bit each day. So I was just, I was in full hunt mode in the mornings trying to locate them, and then I'd just follow them throughout the day.
So you mentioned obviously parts of Lake Ray Roberts just kind of looking like a underwater forest, and it really does, and it's cool. And I think for anglers, when they look at a place like that, especially me, people that are here from the Midwest, where all of our stuff is more like barren, rocky type stuff around us versus hardwoods. When you're looking at a place that just has hundreds or thousands of trees to choose from, obviously you talked about the bottom and depth and things like that. Is there something like a visual cue at the top of the water that you're looking for in those trees? Like, is there a certain shape? Is there a certain setup width? Are you looking for crisscross branches? You're looking for straight up? Is there anything above the water that you just immediately look at and you're like, that's a tree I at least want to zone in on and kind of investigate a little further versus these other 50 or 100 around me?
I guess for me, I thought it was the bushy trees at first. After practice, I was like, okay, these are the ones I need to focus on. But in the tournament, I really slowed down and picked things apart more. And I started to learn that it's not just those bushy trees. They actually live on all the trees. But, you can get in one of those creeks and just look around, and you'll start to notice, like, there'll be a hard tree line here, and then, there'll be a little area with nothing. And then you look over here, there'll be another hard line with nothing behind it. And those were the areas that had the hard bottom where the trees don't grow as much. Those were the areas that I'd really, you could just bomb over there and, you'd find some fish, because you'd be, oh, that's why there's no trees here. There's a hard, there's a steep drop off right here, and, it's a hard flat right behind it. So it's just, you could really just kind of scan the area and kind of see, the zones that would be kind of key.
So you mentioned rotating through those zones too. What determines how quickly you make that rotation? And will you make a rotation and then come right back where you started and start again? And for every one of those spots you're setting up, I'm assuming you're seeing fish at all of them. So it's just kind of like sort of going around and continuing to check on those fish and seeing which ones are going to cooperate. How quickly are you making that rotation?
It all depends on reading the fish mood and just how they're reacting to my stuff. I'm one that I think this is where I differ from a lot of people. If a fish isn't acting right to my bait, I'm leaving. Like, I'm not going to sit there and spend amount of time on that fish. Like, if he's not ready, he's not ready. I don't care if I think it's a 10-pounder, I'm leaving. And I think that's where I differ from a lot of guys is, there's so many times where I've just known I'm around winning fish and I just leave because they're not ready yet, and I'll come check on them, 2 hours later. And that's a big thing for me, at least. It works for me. I know a lot of guys that can sit there and, pound on the fish and eventually figure out something to get them to bite. But once I find a bait that I'm confident in, like, for example, this event was the Nico rig, I just take that, I put it in front of as many fish as I can in a day, and, I just pick off the easy ones. And yeah, to go back to your question, that's I mean, it's just all about reading the fish behavior for me. Obviously, if I'm getting bit, I'm going to stay. But, it's just, for me, it's all about picking off the easy ones. And, if for Ray Roberts, those fish, it really reminded me of Leech Lake, my home lake in Minnesota. The amount of fish that you catch does not reflect the amount of fish in the lake. There's actually quite a few fish in Ray Roberts. They're just so smart. I would have to throw out a lot of fish in a day in order to get one to bite. Probably every 3 to 5 bass I threw at, I would get a bite. So I mean, it's you definitely just got to play the numbers game, at least for me, and just put it in front of as many as you can in a day, and hopefully 5 good ones bite. And that's kind of my thought process.
So there was a lot of stuff that obviously you guys were battling, but like you said, the hard part is getting them to bite. I mean, you had a few reasons to make that tough. The wind makes that tough. Obviously, you guys battled wind almost every day, especially in practice, but during the event itself. The trees and their shape obviously making it hard to make the right cast. I think when you find where those fish are and you've got a big structure there, obviously you have to work around in addition to the fish, and then just coaxing that fish and triggering it to actually take that final bite. Which of those was the hardest for you this week? Was it the wind and getting into position? Was it physically making the right cast, or just trying to trigger the bite?
It's a combination of all three. It was definitely a process. Obviously, when I roll up to a tree and I see a fish, I'm obviously going to come up downwind first. I mean, that's the most efficient way to do it. And then, I'd look at the fish, and then I'd visually look at the tree, and I really study how all the branches are laid out and everything. Because if you skip in there and you're over a branch and an 8-pounder bites, you're screwed. I mean, that fish is breaking you off. So I'd get up there and, I'd study the whole, I'd really look at him up on the forward facing, figure out, okay, he's on the right side of the tree, and I'm looking at the tree. I'm like, okay, dang, there's 2 big branches. I got to get on the other side of those branches. So then I'll reposition the boat on the other side of the tree. I mean, it was a process for every tree I pulled up to. And I think that's another thing where I kind of separated myself was, I'm looking for the perfect angle. And then, it's all about making the correct cast, making sure you're not over any limbs. And it was a big process for every fish I was trying to target. And then you do all this and the fish doesn't bite. I mean, he follows your stuff, he swims away, and you're like, I mean, it was just that over and over for me all day long, all 3 days. And I mean, yeah, it was, like I said, it was very tedious, and just making sure everything's perfect. Because, I mean, if you throw in there and your bait's over 2 limbs and it falls down and the fish sees it and he bites, or it's just, everything had to be perfect for me to even leave my bait in there. And yeah, I think that was another way I was able to separate myself from the competitors.
So in a perfect world, if you don't have a rotation you have to get through, and it was just, again, this is a hypothetical situation, but you find a fish, you just can't get it to bite, it's there, it's a fish that you have basically put in the Rolodex here and be like, I will come check on this fish later. In a perfect world, how long do you like to give a fish that's not cooperating before coming and checking on it again?
I would say a half hour to an hour. I'd come check on it again. Or okay. It's all dependent, because, if I'm in an area where I have 5 to 6 spots I want to hit, I'll just run through everything else. And before I leave the area, I'll go check on that fish again. Or, sometimes it's just that one fish in the area. So I'll go, it's just, you just got to, put it in your game plan somehow, some way. I mean, it's different every scenario, but yeah, ideally half hour to an hour, I would say, just enough for him to get set back up where he was.
So you said obviously the Nico was your big choice there, but I think on some situations you were probably able to throw the jerkbait and at least maybe coax those fish out of the wood a little bit more to make them easier to cast to. How often was that happening versus just going straight into the wood with the Nico?
There was a lot of times the fish would be so deep in the tree and it would be so gnarly that I just didn't feel comfortable going in with the Nico. And then that's when I would pick up the jerkbait and try to call him out with the jerkbait, because I was using a jerkbait that had a really loud lattice system, or a chamber in there. And so I would try to call the fish out, and, sometimes it would come out and bite it. Most of the time it would just come out. And that's when I would, the fish would then be out of the tree, and I'd hurry up, reel in, grab the Nico and try to hit him. But, a lot of times, the fish would be so in there, it wouldn't even hear the jerkbait. So that's when I would go in with a flipping stick and then, try to target them. I think I weighed one key fish each day on the flipping stick, just because every once in a while I'll come up one that was so deep in the tree I couldn't hit him with anything else. I would have to go in with the big line and go get him. So.
Were there certain times of day or certain conditions you think made those fish more likely to respond to a jerkbait or come out of the wood versus, other times, whether it's early in the day or cloud cover or wind or anything like that? Was there anything you can pinpoint?
I don't think it was time of day. It was more conditions. Like, for example, day 1 was cloudy and super windy, and that had those fish pinned to the bottom and just so tight to the structure. I think like 3 out of the 5 fish I didn't even scope them. I was just fishing trees, trees that I knew set up right. And, I honestly really didn't even need forward facing on day one. You could have just fished the structure and did what I did. But then day two was sunny and glass calm, and that had those fish. I mean, most of them, I'm sure you've heard, they were like, 6 inches to 2-3 feet under the surface. I mean, like way up high, basically sunning. And that's when I was, super dangerous to the forward facing, picking off individual fish. But yeah, I mean, to go back to your jerkbait question, I think it's just when I just didn't feel comfortable going in there with the Nico, it was just too gnarly. That's when I would pick up the jerkbait and try to pull them out.
So let's get to the actual gear itself. So the star of the show obviously was the Nico rig. I think you were throwing like Strike King KBD Perfect Plastic, the finesse worm there. So those come in 5, if I remember right, I think 5 inches and 6.5 inches are your options for those. It looked like you were throwing 6.5, right?
Yep, 6.5.
And then the color, they have a red bug color. They also have one that's a little darker with like some blue flake in it. Yours was red bug, right?
Red bug, yep.
Okay. What is it about red down there in Texas? And I mean, you see it all the time. Yeah, there it is right there. So you see that a lot, it seems like down south. You see people lean into that red kind of color. What is it about that color? Is it, I don't know, the water tint or the water color or clarity or just a confidence thing down there? What's with the red?
For me, it was just the watercolor. I started with a green pumpkin, and it just didn't feel right in that watercolor. And I picked up the red and I threw it in the water, and it really like shined in that, kind of green stain. And that's what, from then on, that's kind of just what I ran with and just kept getting bit on it. So, I mean, but yeah, it just felt the best for that green stain that Ray Roberts had. And that was my first time really fishing in Texas. So I assume that's how most lakes are in there, kind of a green stain, but we'll see. But yeah, it just felt like the best color for that watercolor.
And so then the worm itself, in your choice of that particular finesse worm, I mean, you're a Strike King guy, but Strike King makes, I don't know, I can think of probably 4 or 5 worms that you could put on a Nico rig if you wanted. Why that one?
So like I don't think a lot of guys do this, but I Nico that new filler worm that they have too. A lot of guys think of it as a drop shot worm, but I Nico it all the time. It has insane action on Nico rig. But with it's a more slender worm than the Perfect Plastic one. And there was, like on day 2, for example, I wanted this worm to be fish basically weightless. I just put the weight in there so I could cast it more accurately. But this has a beefier profile, so I feel like I can alter the fall rate of this worm better than I can that filler worm. But yeah, I think that's the main reason. I could put a light weight in here and just fish it basically weightless, where the filler worm would still fall like a rock with a weight in it. So, but I mean, yeah, that's the main reason why I picked this worm. And just, it's got kind of a beefy tail, and a beefy head and a super slender tail, super good action. So I guess that's the main reasons.
I'm going to ask this question because it's very easy for me to say here. Like, I would probably say if you dropped me down in Texas around a bunch of wood and a bunch of 8-pound fish, there's a lot of things I'd probably pick up before a Nico rig, just because I feel like conventional wisdom tells me to do it. But obviously you have a lot of confidence in that Nico rig. I know you've used it a lot. I'm sure there's a little bit of that comes into play. But like, why choose the Nico rig over, and again, this is why you are a Bassmaster Classic champion. I'm some bum in Ohio sitting in a glorified, closet here that talks about fish. But why the Nico rig? Why was that your weapon of choice versus something that may be a little bit more, weedless or more of a traditional flipping jig or something like that?
Like you said, it's just one of my biggest confidence things, and that's the biggest thing I've learned is you're most dangerous when you're in your comfort zone, your confidence baits, and that was just the case for me. I could have picked up a jig and really dialed that and, more and probably, done well. I don't know if I would have won, but I truly think this was the best way to coax them into biting. I can really alter the fall rate, like I said earlier, and just, I don't know, man. It's just my comfort zone. I think that's a big thing when you're fishing, is just do what you're confident in. And, I think that goes, that'll take you, wherever you want to go if you're fishing confident. So, I mean, that's just my biggest confidence bait as of late.
Well, I know another piece of that bait that you have a lot of confidence in is that hook. I have seen you throw some iteration of that hook a lot. I know this is a little bit beefier version of it, I think, but that is the Ryugi, I think the Talisman, the 1/0 probably. And it's like, now the one that you're throwing there is the like heavy weed guard version of it, obviously, but that is a more of a circular style Nico hook too. You see a lot of guys, I got a lot of friends that are like on the big, long shank, really straight hook. You seem to go more on that circle side of things. I love a circle hook for that type of stuff too. Why do you love that hook so much?
I started using it 2 years ago now, I think, and I haven't looked back. I use it for any nose hook drop shot, any Nico, any wacky worm. I mean, it's
all of them.
I have never had a hook where I've had more confidence in my life. I mean, I won both my opens on it last year. Now I won the classic on it. I mean, it's a bad dude. I don't know why it is. It's just, it's got like the perfect, hook angle and hook bend. I don't know, man. You just get them and you don't seem to lose them. They can't shake it once you get them. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous how good it is, honestly.
Where'd it come from? Like, did you find it yourself? Was someone turn you on to this hook? Like, I mean, like I said, you've been using it for a long time.
I mean, I'm a huge tackle tinker guy. I mean, I'm always ordering kind of random stuff on Tackle Warehouse. I'm always trying to stay on top of things and try to stay ahead of the curve. And this is just one that I kind of landed on, like I said, about 2 years ago now. And back then, Ryugi was kind of still under the radar a little bit. Guys weren't really turned on to them yet. And yeah, I mean, it's just one of those kind of hidden gems that I found. And now I feel like everyone knows about it, especially after my win 2 weeks ago now. But yeah, I mean, just kind of something I landed on, and then I showed it to my couple of my buddies here. I was still in Montevallo, going to school when I found it, and I told them about it, and they're like, "Holy cow, dude! Like, this is legit." And then it kind of just gave me added confidence, and then yeah, like I mean, I've never had so much confidence in a hook before in my life. It's unreal.
Will you use like a long shank Nico hook for anything?
No. Well, when I drop shot like a robo worm or a filler worm, a worm of that style, I'll use a long shank. But
okay.
Only scenario.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about more of a circle style hook. I've always been for wacky rigs for everything. Like, I don't know if it's just the look of it. I don't like that big long shank sticking off of it. I think it looks silly, but also I think I get a little better hookup ratio on just like a little bit wider circle hook. So the other thing that's really cool about the way that you rig that thing, and I don't know, I'm assuming the one you have in there, you can hold it up too. You're not using like a band or anything like that. You're using that little G-crack thing that they came out with that like you basically just poke through and then it makes a little circle that you put at the top. I don't know what they call it. They call it the hack Nico hack. Yeah, the G-crack Nico hack. So basically you shove it through and I think you break the tail end of it so it just kind of comes off flush. Where did you pick that up at?
That's another one of the deals, man.
It's cool. Yeah.
It's about the same time I found the Talisman, I found that deal. And that's another deal I haven't looked back. I mean, it's it's like my Senkos and stuff, I'll still use the O-ring, but all my Nico worms are a lot thinner profile, and the O-rings, they still just kind of fling off after 10 casts, it seems like. So, I mean, I use this worm, obviously, all the time, but there's even a couple like JDM worms that are even a thinner profile where you have to use this thing. I mean, there's no O-rings that are small enough for it, so it's just you'll break your hook off, it seems like, before you fling the worm up with that thing. I mean, it's pretty legit. So
yeah, and even if it's not just the trying to find an O-ring that fits, also just the way that thing is made. And again, I've never used one, but I've seen them before, where the side that you poke it through, it has like a natural stopper on the other side that's really big and probably absorbs a lot of that abuse that worm takes, where you have one of those tiny little bands. I mean, it splits that worm in half a lot of times. I'm assuming that doesn't happen. Does that make your overall rig just that much more durable? How many worms do you think you went through in the Classic as a whole using that?
Yeah, honestly, not many, man. I mean, yeah, even when the fish are like flopping around with your worm, it keeps it intact. So you definitely go through way less worms. I mean, usually my Nico weight will go flying out before I lose my worm with that thing. So it's definitely legit.
Speaking of the weights, what weights were you throwing?
I was using for the most part, just the striking worm. This one, I do have a football style. I don't even know the brand. It's from Japan.
Okay. Just a screw in?
Yeah, just a screw in football weight. I was mostly using the striking weight. I was going between a 132nd and a 332nd.
The striking weight's the one you're going all the way in, like it's completely hidden, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, just obviously varying it on where the fish were in the depth range, and also just the wind speed. I was trying to go as light as I could get away with. So
when you were using the football, it wasn't for the shape of it itself; it was just for added weight. Like, there's no difference for you in throwing the Strike King weight that's completely buried in there versus the football. It's not like you're bouncing that thing off of the branches any different or anything like that.
No.
Got it. So I want to go to the line choice there next. Obviously, you're a northern guy, so I have a feeling this is going to be, pretty light setup here. But what was your line of choice, including like brand and everything like that you were throwing?
Yeah, so I was using the Strike King tour grade braid, 8 pound. But I beefed up the leader. I was using a Seagar Gold Label 17 pound for a leader.
Is there ever a thought to go 10 at least? Like, that scares me. 8 around wood, especially. Like, did you have to retie a lot? Were you seeing fraying at all? Like, that would scare me, I think, at 8.
No, I didn't see any fraying. I think most people don't give 8 pound braid enough credit. I mean, that stuff's strong. I mean, it's all about your connection knot and your leader. But yeah, the reason I'm hesitant to ever up or like, to bump up the size in the braid is I lose my castability and my accuracy. Then I feel like if I do that, it's not as smooth when you go to cast. And for what I was doing, I mean, you have to be super accurate. And I feel like I'd lose that accuracy if I went to a thicker braid, just because it wouldn't cast as easy, especially in that wind. So, and then obviously, I mean, I went to a 17 just for the abrasion resistance and just so I could, horse on them a little bit when I would get one, just to make sure I keep them away from that tree.
17 is the leader. Obviously makes sense when you're around a bunch of wood and stuff, but does it affect your action or your feel of that Nico at all versus, normally having, I don't know what it is, 8, 10, 12 normally on there?
For me, no. I mean, I could still feel everything that was going on pretty perfectly. So, and I used to be a big believer in the fish, seeing your line and stuff. I used to use really long leaders, but I've been using the forward facing since 2020, so 5 years now, and I've looked at so many fish that I don't think when you're sniping them, at least when I'm like, say I'm at home in Minnesota, I'm fan casting for smallmouth super far. When the fish I know are following my bait a good ways, I'll still use a super long leader. But when I'm sniping them on forward facing, I'm using an overall, like most of my minnow setups, my leader is only a foot and a half, maybe 2 feet.
A foot and a half, and you use bright braid too. You're like yellow braid.
Yep, always yellow braid with my spinning rods.
And you don't think it matters at all?
No.
Interesting.
I don't think so. But this setup, I wanted just long enough to where I'd get as much abrasion resistance as I could, but I didn't want to go through my guides much. So probably 2.5 foot leader. I guess I was using maybe 2 feet.
What's the average length of the cast that you're trying to make to these fish? Because you're talking about accuracy and all kinds of stuff, which with a spinning rod is hard enough, right? I think a lot of people think more on casting gear when you're going to make short, precise casts to these fish where you're set up right next to this tree. That's the hardest part is, accurately casting with a spinning rod in general. You can bomb it, but trying to hit a specific target is tough.
Yeah, so I guess 50-foot casts for the most part is what I was doing.
Okay.
And a big deal for me in the wind is, another thing too, when I first started doing this is I used to be a huge fan of long rods, but it seems like the more I do it now, the shorter and shorter they get. Like my rod at the Classic was a 7-foot medium Lose Elite. And I can't say enough about that rod. I'm so obsessed with it. It's so good. But for me, you want a short rod because when it's windy like that, you want to cast underhand to keep your bait as close to the water as you can. And what that does is the wind can't catch your line in your bait and just, fling it all over the place. So if you can keep it really close to the water and, you need a short rod in order to do that, it's almost like when you're jerking a jerkbait, you don't want your rod tip hitting the water every time you jerk it. So yeah, that's the reason why I did the shorter rod. I'm a big guy, so if you're a shorter dude, you might want even a shorter rod. But for me, 7 foot's about perfect. Underhand cast, so the wind can't catch your stuff. And then that's kind of the biggest keys for casting accurate in the wind.
So, what's your normal rod of choice? Like if you're back home in Minnesota and you're making long bomb casts, are you like a 7.3, 7.6 kind of guy, or are you still going shorter with that?
If I'm like fan casting for smallmouth, like I said, like a hair jig, small swim bait, it's 7.6, even up to 8 foot. Sometimes I got a couple custom made rods, for doing that stuff. But yeah, when I'm sniping on live scope, it's a 7 foot, 6'10", 6'8" even sometimes.
So I'm trying to do like quick math here. This is what I love. Like the Classic winning setup so far for like baits and line and everything. I mean, it's not a very expensive, bait lineup and line lineup here. I mean, obviously we'll get to the rod and the reel here in a second, which, is obviously a little different when you're buying a combo. But I mean, you're talking like a $6 pack of worms, probably. You're talking $5-6 pack of Ryugi hooks. You're talking, I don't know, those Nico tools from G-Crack are like $4 or $5 for, I think, like a 12 pack. So you're not bad there. Strike King Tour braid, which I saw right now is on sale like a couple places half off. You can get a 150 yard spool for like $12.50 right now. And then the only other thing was your leader, which, what did you say? What kind of line were you throwing on the leader?
It was a Seaguard Gold Label.
Okay, so that's obviously your one semi-expensive, but still leader lasts you a long time.
I use Red Label all the time too. It's just as good, to be honest.
Do you?
Yeah, I love Red Label. I mean, it's over there, but I got a couple spools laying right there. I use
Red Label for leader a lot.
Yeah, it's super.
Huh. So I know you mentioned your rod there. Obviously, that's the Lose Elite. That rod has been out since, I don't know, a couple years at least, right? The Elites have. So how long have you been using that specific rod?
Probably, I think I got my hands, after I won the bracket, I think they sent me some, and that's when I first kind of discovered it. So
Okay.
since fall of 23, I've been using it.
Okay, so it'd be the TLE 70MFS probably for you guys that are at home and you want to look up like the actual model number, I think, of the 7-foot medium. But and I looked before we started too, because I know obviously that's a rod that you like. I think they're $349. They're in stock a lot of places right now. You can go buy them right now. What is it about that rod that you think makes it so special? You said that you love it. You said it's like your favorite rod that you've used in a long time. What is it about, whether it's the action or the taper or whatever, that you've really found that you like about that specific? Because there are a gajillion 7-foot medium fast rods. That's like your, 7-foot medium heavy fast of the casting world. Like it's your do everything rod, obviously, and there's a billion choices. Why do you like that specific one?
For me, it's got the perfect tip, and it goes straight into backbone, which is, you need a really good tip for your Nico, and for me, for your smaller minnows and that sort of thing. Just most of your scope stuff, you want a soft tip, but you want to go straight into backbone. So, I think it's the perfect action, and I'm a big fan of the wind grip that rod has. I've really fallen in love with that. But yeah, it's just a combination of it's just, it's got Fuji guides and stuff on it, so it's super sensitive. It's just all around great rod, from top to bottom. It's just got premium components on it, so it's got the sensitivity and just super good feel.
So obviously a versatile rod too, but what other techniques do you think that rod does really well besides obviously what you were doing last 2 weeks?
I do all my drop shotting on it, all my filler worm drop shot stuff. That's also my wacky worm rod. It's just versatile rod, super. You can do basically anything you want on it. And like I said, I actually took a picture of it. I don't know where my phone's at right now, but at the Classic, I had 7 of that model rod in the boat. So, it's
7 of the exact same rod.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's basically, you can bet that I'm using that rod if I'm throwing something on a spinning rod. It's that versatile.
What about the reel? What reel were you throwing it on?
It's the custom light 300 size, super affordable reel. So, and it's got really good drag. So yeah, I love it.
So then really quick, obviously Nico was the star of the show. There are 2 other baits that, played a big role. We talked a little bit about the jerk bait earlier. I guess if we want to start with line choice, at least give me line choice on your jerk bait setup and what you prefer on a jerk bait.
So normally I'm a 12-pound line guy for a jerk bait, but given the scenario I was around the timber and stuff, I actually upticked that to a 17-pound also. Like I said, most of them actually weren't grabbing it. I was doing it just to try to pull them out. So I wasn't too worried about it killing the action of the bait as much, I guess. But, I really didn't care if I hooked him. I wanted to make sure I could get him out of there and have that abrasion resistance, like I said with the leader. So 17-pound on the jerkbait.
Did color of jerkbait matter, you think?
I was using like an off-white type color.
Okay. Just like a bone type look, yeah.
Yeah.
So then the other one that we haven't really talked about too much yet is a jig. You did throw a jig, and you did, have a couple important fish on a jig too. Mm-hmm. So what type of jig were you throwing? What weight of jig were you throwing? What trailer? What did that whole rig kind of look like?
I was just using a straight brown 1/2 ounce rubber jig. I had a Rage Menace grub on the back, green pumpkin. Your most basic jig you've ever seen, just 1/2 ounce. And that was kind of my last resort. If there was a fish that I just couldn't reach with anything else, I just flipped that thing to the middle of the tree, and if she bit, it was just, you had to horse them out of there and kind of pray, I guess. But yeah, I don't think I weighed 1 fish a day on the jig, and like I said, that was my last resort. If I saw a good one I couldn't get to, and that's what I flipped in at them. So
got it. So then I don't know. I don't really know how to word this. So if you were having success on a Nico rig, worm profile, obviously, is there ever a thought in your mind, like if you needed to get deeper in that wood to keep the same profile and go in with another type of worm that's rigged a different way, whether it's Texas rig or whatever, to make it more weedless, to be able to throw it on beefier gear versus flipping up your profile completely and going to like a big bulky jig style profile? Or do you think it doesn't matter at all? You just have to get to the right spot?
I honestly think it's more timing, whether that fish is ready to bite than anything, to be honest. That did go through my head briefly in practice. I started flipping a 1/4 ounce weight with the same worm on a little Texas rig, kind of like a finessier deal with a bait caster, because I thought, that may be the deal. But I don't think it was. For one, I couldn't be as accurate. I couldn't present the bait as good with that setup. And, I don't know. I think it all comes down if that fish is ready to bite, it'll bite, a lot of different things. So I think it's more just, with this worm on a spinning rod, I could just do it so efficiently and just, I could fish it effectively and just, yeah.
So last question here before I have one more after this, and then obviously I'll let you go. I know it's getting late here. So over the course of that, couple days of practice, of 3 days of competition, was there anything that you had in your mind going into competition of like, oh, this is going to be a player for me. I've got it rigged up on the deck of my boat. I'm going to throw it. And then it became pretty evident that that was not something you were going to be using. Like, was there anything going into Ray Roberts thinking you were going to be throwing that you just did not end up throwing?
Not really.
It's good preparation then.
in pre-practice, I found some rock piles I was super excited about. So I had a crankbait on the deck, thinking I'd be able to crank up, some big ones off some isolated rock. But for me, that was just so inconsistent. And yeah, I guess that bait quickly left my deck, going into practice. But going into it, I would have said, even before I showed up, that an eco rig would be my biggest player. Because I did go there for pre-practice early December, and just based on what I saw there and what I was expecting them to, how I was hoping at least that they would be set up when we came back. I was hoping it'd be a Nico rig deal, which, it was. So
you go to pre-practice in December. Obviously, it's a long ways away. Those fish can move quite a bit at that point. Mm-hmm. What you did in December and what you figured out and, some fish that you found and stuff like that, did those fish really stick around close enough that what you found in December rolled over?
I guess for me, the biggest thing in pre-practice was to find, because I knew how much timber there was out there. So the biggest thing for me was to find lanes into everywhere. So I didn't have to worry about that when we came back for official practice.
Which is nice, because when you came back to official practice, you couldn't do anything because there were 6-footers rolling around. So you couldn't find your way anyway.
Yeah, right. When I was there for pre-practice, I was here for 4 days. The first 2 days, I literally found lanes all day for 2 days. And then the third day, I basically idled all day. And then the fourth day, I actually fished a little bit, found 2 areas that I felt like had good populations of fish. And then when I came back, I started in those 2 zones and just kind of found how far along they were. I didn't know if they were spawning or still way out in the ditches or what they were doing. So I ultimately landed on that 5 to 10 foot hard spot range, classic pre-spawn stuff. And then that's what I duplicated the rest of the lake. So that's kind of how I attacked it.
That's cool. Well, I have one final question for you. So as we wrap up here, there are, tens of thousands of people that will hear this over the next couple days when this comes out. And honestly, a lot of our audience and a lot of the people that listen are either parents of younger anglers or younger anglers themselves that, are learning and getting into fishing, and they are chasing that dream that you are still chasing, but were definitely chasing years and years ago. What advice would you give to those younger anglers or those parents of those younger anglers at this point that are listening right now, aspiring to be where you are and you were in their shoes just a few short years ago?
Yeah, I guess the biggest thing for me is to go to school and get your degree. Don't skip a step. But yeah, just work your way up the ranks, start in high school, start in junior. But yeah, and then go to college fishing. College fishing is the sole reason why I'm where I'm at. It's obviously I won that bracket tournament that gave me the opportunity, basically sped my life up by a couple of years. I was fully expecting to have to go work and, save up funds to go do the opens and stuff, and obviously the college bracket just kind of threw me into the opens, which I'm grateful for. But just go to school and find a good college that has, a well-funded team. And yeah, traveling around the country, you learn so much about the lakes, but also just talking to the kids for 4 years, that's where you really learn stuff, because most of these teams now have kids from every corner of the country, and you bring all that knowledge to one place. It's unreal how much everyone learns in those 4 years. So definitely go to school, fish in college, and then, from then on, if you can, I'm a firm believer now after I went through all the ranks, if you can catch them in college, you can catch them at any level. Those kids, almost all those kids at the college level are just like me. They're diehard. They want to do it at the next level, and that's what they're working towards. So, that's if you can work. If you can, compete consistently at the college level, I think you're ready for the opens, and then you can from then on. The sky's the limit. So, definitely just work your way up the ranks, and just work hard. And yeah, anything's possible, and I'm living proof of that.
Well, obviously, we're so happy for you. It's really cool to see it happen to the good guys. And in fishing, luckily, we have a plethora of good guys. Like, there's very few, I think, bad guys out there, right? And you love to see it happen to the good ones. You are one of the good ones, obviously. I cannot wait. We cannot wait to see what the next, 5, 10, 20, 30 years have in store for you, because your first 3, 4, 5 years, you've been shot out of a bottle rocket at this point. Like, all the success you had, very cool to see. And obviously, we hopefully see you keep that up down the road. We're rooting for you, man. Congratulations. Obviously, the win of a lifetime. And, your career is just in, the first inning here. You still have a lot more to go. So congratulations, ladies and gentlemen. That is your 2025 Bassmaster Classic champion, Easton Fothergill. Easton, thank you so much, man.
Appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me.
All right, everybody, that's our episode today. We can't thank Easton enough for stopping by. The last few weeks have been extremely busy for him, I'm sure, but we appreciate him clearing some time to chat with us and to dive into not only his big win, but the exact worm, the exact hook, hardware, line, rod, reel, and all of his favorite aspects of each of those pieces of gear. Really cool to hear. Again, huge congrats to Easton, and I think we're all looking forward to watching him for decades and decades down the road here. He's just getting started. So I appreciate you guys tuning in today. Thank you so much. As always, you can find us on the web, tackletalkpodcast.com. We still have some merch over there available. We have mugs, we have t-shirts, all kinds of stuff. Go check that out. Go submit a mailbag question on tackletalkpodcast.com too. All you got to do is click mailbag at the top of the page, and you can fill out your question for your chance to be heard on an upcoming episode. Find us on Instagram and Facebook at Tackle Talk Podcast, and we'll see you right back here next Tuesday for another brand new episode of Tackle Talk.
Thank you for listening to the Tackle Talk Podcast. Tackle Talk is produced by Andrew Hayes. Copyright 2019. For more, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.